It is not lost on me, the irony of telling you not to trust the internet in an online video where I also hope to deliver to you a good deal of information. However, when it comes to the electric universe, or should I say the new electric universe theories, you cannot trust the internet. This is because when a first-time investigator seeks out information on the electric universe, EU for short, they are confronted by two types of information: individual takes and hypotheses on the various subtopics within the field or the field itself, and broad summaries and reviews from third parties. The individuals pushing forward ideas tend to publish papers, books, equations. It's somewhat intimidating even for those who know a bit about physics. The reviews and summaries tend to make sweeping generalizations, tend to be outdated, and fail to mine the gems from what has become a murky resource pit with a whole lot of voices. Here's what I mean. There have been pillars of progress throughout the history of the electric universe. Walter Russell, whose work on light is yet to be disproven. Immanuel Velikovsky, who might have fared better against Carl Sagan with Harvard at his back, who now leads the trend of publishing works on how the planets were once chaotic, or with the evidence that stars can transform through 3 stellar phases of evolution within just 100 years. The names are numerous, and I couldn't hope to mention them all, but the principles they espouse are simple. This universe is made up of positive, negative, and combinations of those things. Everything boils down to positive and negative, and so therefore magnetic universe has also been suggested as an equally fitting name by some like Matthew Emery, progenitor of Leedscounen.com. When science decided to largely ignore the EU side of the story, something Einstein would have strongly opposed before he died, the body of work and hypotheses was on the verge of being forgotten. In the 1990s and 2000s, the whispers began creeping back into the mainstream, however, and today there seems to be a whirlwind of information. Over just the last 3 years, the number of scientists and experimenters, both professional and amateur, doing work and investigating these ideas has skyrocketed. There is now no one solidified EU theory, kind of like the mainstream, but the ideas have a lot of things in common. We are seeing energetic influences where traditionally the explanations have been purely kinetic, pressure, temperature, etc. Those systems can be easily modeled until you start inputting that outside energy, and you have to realize that either the dynamics are electric or the physical parameters you are modeling are themselves modulated by electricity. That's about the only idea most reviews of the electric universe hit spot on. The rest are quasi-egregious cherry-picking of the most fanatical ideas in place of the most confirmed and neglected gems to be found. For example, I would rather talk about electrical effects on geology than a historical doomsday caused by almost hitting another planet. But that's not what we see in the reviews. Our own solar-triggered quake theory has now been observed, modeled, tested by statistics professors, published and confirmed by multiple subsequent observations, and I understand that Dr. Svalgaard over at Stanford, who has guardianship over the data we use, still considers this stuff to be numerology and has a good deal of contempt for the notion that the sun could cause an earthquake. You will never find anything about plasma from space affecting the atmosphere and the ground of Mars, or comets or asteroids in those reviews. You will never hear about space weather-induced storms or earthquakes, despite the fact that we have middle school and high school students able to pick out the patterns. Last year, one of the 6th grade classes that predicts earthquakes with these techniques had more than 80% accuracy. According to the mainstream, there's nothing to see here. So while I can't tell you what the new electric universe theory is, nobody can, I can describe a good bit of the various fractions within it, and I can also tell you where to look for more information. The future of this field is the future of the mainstream, in my opinion. They are going to meet. For example, each of the more than 300 papers and books published in the last decade on space weather effects on the atmosphere is a red flag indicating that a big part of the climate change system is missing, and it's electric. The futures of these fields are the same because they will collide. The acrimonious state of the relationship between researchers on different sides of the aisle is kind of embarrassing for everyone involved, and it will not be long before both sides will have to be standing at the same lab table. Both sides will make concessions. Both will be vindicated while wiping egg from their brows. Now the only question is, how do we get there as quickly as possible? At the Electric Universe Conference in 2015, the Thunderbolts project really tried, inviting a genuine skeptic, an excellent move for credibility, but also an open door for another one of the reviews at which I've come to cringe so very often. At the conference, he asked questions like, can the EU do a better job at putting a lander on Mars or doing an orbital insertion than mainstream physics? The answer, of course, is yes if it had the time and money that the mainstream has had since the late 1800s. But more importantly, how's the mainstream physics doing with earthquake prediction? Took the Observer's Collective about 3 years to do what the best physicists couldn't in a century, and now middle school kids are doing it too. How is physics doing predicting global warming while considering the sun as a constant and insignificant factor in forcing? How does Comet 67P stack up to what we were told about comets? That conference was wonderful. The skeptic and his article failed to do much more than highlight the differences and opposition of the ideas. Luckily, this universe is a snitch. She can't wait to show us everything, which she is doing across a number of vectors of this science. June 17th through 19th, 2016, just about 2 weeks away, you can hear a lot more about this. The next EU conference will be taking place in Phoenix, and you can hear more on the specific ideas being pushed forward by a number of voices in the community, including my own. If you can't make it out to Phoenix, there will be a live streaming option so you can watch. Go to Thunderbolts.info to start looking into the information. When you investigate these topics for yourself, you should remember to be asking what the electric universe means to you, not to someone else and not to the rest of the world. I am firmly entrenched in that field and interact with a lot of those voices, but I stand firm with less than half of the ideas put forth from the collective on this side. Does that mean I'm not a true electric universe guy? Does it mean anything more than what we see in disagreements in the mainstream? We can't stop the commenters and summary writers from doing what they do, but you can do your own research and see what's good for yourself. In addition to the EU 2016 conference in Phoenix this month, our own conference Observing the Frontier will have its third event next year in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 11 months from now. More on that will be coming soon, but I'm focused on Phoenix for the time being. If you're new here, we do a Sun and Earth Effects report every morning at approximately 6 a.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube at the Suspicious Observers channel. You can also watch for free at suspiciousobservers.org, spaceweathernews.com, and earthchanges.org. All valuable resources.